She would later think that the hug lasted 4 seconds, maybe 5. Long enough that the band's rendition of some crowd-pleasing cover kept playing underneath it. Long enough that her cousin's uncle kept talking to the man beside him about the open bar. Long enough that nothing in the room stopped except the small private center of her chest. "I love you, Mommy." The girl set it into her collarbone, arms tight around her neck, and then let go and ran back toward the dance floor because a table of aunts had started clapping for the flower girls. That was all. No pause, no camera moment. Just a child doing what children do at weddings, attaching herself to warmth wherever she found it. Behind her, David had gone still. She hadn't planned this collision. She hadn't engineered a reunion at her cousin's wedding to detonate his new marriage in front of witnesses. She simply had a life now, one that happened to intersect with his at family events, the way divorced people's lives sometimes still do when the divorce hadn't managed to unbraid every root. 5 years earlier, on her 42nd birthday, she had walked into her own kitchen and found him with Renata, her best friend since college, maid of honor at her wedding, godmother-in-waiting for a child not yet born, in a position that required no further explanation. She remembered being strangely calm in the moment, the way people describe car accidents. Time slowing, details sharpening, the refrigerator hum, Renata's earring on the floor. What she didn't do, in the months after, was fight for more than she needed. David had expected a battle. He'd hired an aggressive attorney, prepared for scorched earth, offered her a settlement that looked generous on paper. The house, a lump sum, more money than the courts would have required. All of it, she understood later, contingent on her not contesting custody. He wanted the appearance of fairness without the substance of shared parenting. At the time, exhausted and newly pregnant with a daughter he hadn't wanted, she took the deal that let her keep the one thing that mattered: full physical custody, with visitation on his terms. He'd walked away from the negotiation thinking he'd won something. She'd walked away holding her daughter's whole childhood in her hands and hadn't corrected him. For years, he told people. She heard this secondhand, the way you always hear these things, that leaving had freed him, that she'd been controlling, difficult, exhausting to love. He said it to Renata's family at their engagement dinner. He said it, apparently, at the wedding itself, smirking at her across a room full of people who'd known her longer than they'd known him. "Leaving you was my best move," she hadn't argued. She'd had a glass of wine and let her daughter run circles around the dance floor. The petition came 6 weeks after the wedding. Her lawyer called on a Tuesday morning while she was scraping burnt toast into the sink. David was seeking a modification, expanded visitation, moving toward joint physical custody. His filing cited his new marriage, his new house with its extra bedroom, his stable employment, his commitment to being actively present. The language was measured, professional, the kind of language written by someone who believed the paperwork alone would carry the argument. She wasn't frightened, exactly. She was tired in a specific, familiar way, the tiredness of a woman who has already done the hardest parts of a thing and is being asked to do them again for an audience that changed its mind. The court appointed a guardian ad litem, a woman named Miss Okafor, whose job was not to represent either parent, but to represent the child. To sit with a 4-year-old in a small room with soft chairs and ask her, in language a 4-year-old could hold, what her life actually looked like. The mother wasn't in the room for that conversation. She never would be. That was the point. What she got, 3 weeks later, was a phone call from her attorney reading portions of the report aloud, his voice carefully neutral in the way lawyers learn to be neutral about things that aren't neutral at all. The girl had told Miss Okafor about her room, about the stuffed rabbit with one ear, about who braided her hair before school and which nights she wanted the hallway light on and why. She'd talked about her father's house as a place she liked visiting. The word liked, not loved. Not needed. And about her mother's house using different words entirely, words like always and my bed and mommy knows. None of it was dramatic. None of it was an indictment. A 4-year-old doesn't know how to build a legal argument, doesn't know she's supposed to be strategic. She had simply answered honestly, the way children do when nobody has coached them. And the honesty had done what 5 years of custody arrangements and settlement negotiations and settlementations and smirking wedding reception comments had never managed to do. It had made the truth visible to someone with the authority to act on it. The ruling, when it came, was 3 pages of dry procedural language. No villain named, no praise given. It cited the child's primary attachment, the disruption risk of altering an established routine, the absence of any showing that the current arrangement was inadequate. The modification was denied. Visitation would remain as it had been. David received it, she imagined, the way people receive things that contradict a story they've told themselves for years. Not as a wound, exactly, but as an error in the record. Something to be quietly filed and never mentioned at future weddings. She didn't call anyone to celebrate. There was no one to call who would understand that this wasn't a celebration. That evening, she ran her daughter's bath the way she always did, testing the water with her wrist, half listening to a small voice narrating the adventures of a plastic dolphin. Outside, the man who'd stood behind her at the wedding, steady, unhurried, uninterested in ever needing to be the center of the story, was doing dishes, and the sound of it moved through the apartment like something ordinary and good. She thought about the 4 seconds of that hug, about how little it had needed to mean, and how much it had ended up meaning anyway. Once it collided with a courtroom and a guardian's careful notes, and a man who had mistaken 5 years of her silence for defeat. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt mostly like someone continuing a life that had never been about him at all. That his best move, whatever it had cost her once, had simply stopped being relevant to anything that mattered now. She lifted her daughter out of the bath, wrapped her in a towel, and didn't think about David again that night.